to Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Weldin. Today's story is called The Greedy Dog, an original story written for you by Daniel Hinds. Thanks! Enjoy the episode! The Greedy Dog. Once upon a time, there was a greedy old dog named Bailey. Every bite of food, every scrap of snack, every bit of bone he got, he guarded jealously. He'd bark if they looked, growl if they came near, and bite if the barking and growling didn't work. He lived in a busy town, and his owner was a butcher, so he never lacked for good, chunky bones to chew. Every morning, he got a fresh one, and he'd spend his day eating the meat and marrow until the sun set behind the trees. You'd think with such easy access to bones, Bailey would be generous. But unfortunately, it was actually exactly the opposite. The greedy old dog never shared, not even once. He would take the day's bone from his master, along with a few head scratches, and then go into the alley behind the shop and chew, chew, chew. It was a fat and lazy life, which suited the old dog just fine. Until it didn't. It was a day like any other. Bailey had gotten his beef bone from the butcher and brought it out back to eat. However, he only got a few chomps in before a stray cat happened by. She was tatty and orange with wild whiskers and zigzaggy white stripes. She had a ball of yarn in one paw that she was carelessly batting back and forth. Bailey immediately started to bark, but the cat jumped up on top of a chain-link fence where she was well out of the dog's reach and knew it. "Hello, dog," she purred. "Easy with all that barking, Mr. Tough Guy." She prowled closer, one shaggy paw at a time, yarn ball stringing behind her. "Tell me, what is it that you have there?" "You better keep on walking, sister," Bailey growled, cradling the meaty bone protectively between his paws. "This is my bone, and I don't share." The cat crept closer, walking gracefully along the metal tube that topped the fence. She sniffed the beefy bone on the air, and her wild whiskers twitched and bounced. Suppose instead it was ours?" she said, licking her lips. Her tail swayed and curled behind her like a fuzzy orange pendulum, keeping a hungry time. "I've seen you out here with bones before. Surely you could share a little?" "No, never, not ever," Bailey growled. "It's my bone and I need it all. Go chew your yarn." "Oh, surely you could spare just a bit," she said. "It's been a few days since I've had a good meal." She arched her back, and sure enough, under all that tatty orange fur, she did look rather skinny. That didn't overly worry Bailey, though. As far as he was concerned, that was her problem. His problem was finding a place to enjoy his treat without being bothered. With a final withering bark, Bailey picked up the bone and marched out of the alley. He marched down the street and he marched through a parking lot and finally found a quiet place in a vacant lot surrounded by plywood fencing. The grass was long and soft and full of bugs, but that suited Bailey just fine. "Finally, I can eat my bone in peace," he said, and began to gnaw. There were a few good minutes of gnawing, just some real good quality gnaws. But before too long, the greedy old dog found himself interrupted again. "Why, my stars and garters, is that an old bone I smell, my fine sir?" came a voice from a nearby garbage can. Bailey started barking until a tubby raccoon hopped out of the can and scampered up onto a nearby dumpster. His body was all heavy rolls and bright, eager eyes. Now, my good man," he said. "No need for all the commotion. I was merely inquiring as to whether you'd be interested in sharing that big meaty bone with a fellow enthusiast." "It's my bone and I don't share," Bailey growled. Now you keep on moving, you chunky trash panda. The raccoon put a finely fingered hand to his chest. Trash panda? Good sir, I'm sure you know that is a mortal insult to my kind. Surely you must have misspoken. Surely you have garbage in your ears, the greedy dog woofed. I said what I said, and you're lucky I can't climb up that dumpster or I'd give you a chomp. Bailey stood, taking the bone in his mouth and stalking away. Why would no one leave him alone? All he wanted to do was chew his beef bone in peace. Apparently, that was too much to ask for, though. He marched out of the vacant lot and marched through a pleasant park. He marched right up to a quiet little pond where he finally found a peaceful spot by the water. No more interruptions, he said. It's time to eat. He began to chew happily, gnawing the bone with abandon. But before too long, the greedy old dog found himself interrupted once again. Wow, what a treat! Came a plucky voice. Usually we only get stale bread around here. Too exasperated to even bark, Bailey turned to look at his latest interruption. It was a chubby duck, floating on the water nearby. She had a playful smile on her beak and a feather that stood straight up at the back of her head, making her look just a little silly. This isn't a treat for you, Bailey growled. It's my bone, and I don't share. Oh, are you sure? The duck said, her feathers fluffing. I could trade you some stale bread. Oh, or some stale bread. And if I look around, I bet I could even find some stale bread. Bailey just looked at her, eyes narrowed. Not into stale bread? The duck said. That's okay. Let me think. I might have something else. Oh, what about some stale bread? Bailey sighed. This place wasn't going to work either. He thought briefly about splashing into the water to chase the duck, but he'd never been much of a swimmer, and it just didn't seem worth the effort. Instead, he picked up his bone and marched away, further into the little park. He didn't make it far this time. As he was crossing a footbridge over the pond, he caught sight of another dog. It came out of nowhere. Big and shaggy, it was all of a sudden right in front of him. Of course, it must be after his bone. Enough was enough. So then, the greedy old dog did what he did best. He barked. Unfortunately, the other dog wasn't a dog at all, but Bailey's own reflection in the water. And when Bailey barked, he forgot he was holding his bone. No, he cried, but it was too late. The bone fell, bounced off the edge of the footbridge, and splashed into the water. Bailey fell to his belly and pawed at the pond, but it was no good. The water was too deep. He couldn't reach, not even when he stretched as far as he could. Oh, have a little accident? I've had accidents before. One time when I was just a duckling, I wet the pond. Ooh, don't tell anyone, though. Bailey groaned. That annoying duck was back. The duck! Your secret is safe with me, he said, watching her float across the peaceful pond. Say, do you think you could dive down and grab that bone for me? Sure! I dive for stale bread all the time! Here I go! Oh, wait a minute. I asked you to share and you said no, and now you want my help? I'm confused. Yes, that is what happened. Now, go get my bone. And, will you share if I do? No, of course not, Bailey said, offended she would even ask. Well, then, why should I help you? That question took Bailey by surprise. He thought about it for a minute, and then a minute more. Finally, he decided the duck wasn't really all that big, and he could probably share a little. Okay, fine, he said. If you help me get the bone, I'll share it with you. The duck flapped happily. Oh, great! That sounds even better than stale bread! Here I go! She dove under the water and then came up again a minute later without the bone. "Where is it?" "Oh, it's too heavy," she said. "I can't lift it with my beak. If only I had clever hands like the humans, you know? Oh." Bailey whined and laid his head on his paws. He thought for a moment and then realized he knew someone with clever hands. "Wait here," he said. "I'll be right back." "Okay, I'll wait here. I'll be right back. I'm a dog. Woof, woof, woof." The duck said happily. Bailey wasn't sure that she got it, but he didn't want to waste any time. He ran back to the vacant lot and found the raccoon digging through the dumpster. "Hey there, raccoon," Bailey called. "I don't suppose you'd come and help me with those clever paws." The raccoon popped out of the dumpster, a banana peel stuck to his forehead. "Oh, now, it's Raccoon," he said. "What happened to Trash Panda?" The old dog blushed. He had been hoping the raccoon had forgotten about that. Why had he been so rude? What was he thinking? But he knew what he'd been thinking. He hadn't wanted to share. Not a bit. Not a bite. And now he was getting what he deserved. He just hoped it wasn't too late to make amends. I'm sorry," Bailey said. "I shouldn't have called you that. I was greedy and I was rude. The truth is I lost my bone in the pond and I need help getting it out." "Oh, so you come crawling back to me," said the raccoon, lacing his clever hands over his tubby belly. "Well, old-timer, I don't see why I should bother myself with your affairs now." "If you help me, I'll share the bone," Bailey said. "You can split it with me and the duck." He quickly told the story of the duck and the water and the beak that couldn't quite lift the bone. As he told it, he found himself laughing a little. The duck had a certain charm, and he thought maybe he wouldn't mind sharing quite so much as he thought. "Oh, a morose tale indeed, my good man," said the raccoon. "I'd love to help, but I'm not much of a swimmer myself." Bailey felt his heart sink. But then the raccoon stood tall, holding up a finger. But, I think I could still help. With my clever paws, I can tie a loop, and the duck can dive down and wrap it around the bone, and then you can pull it out of the water." "That's actually brilliant," Bailey said, impressed. "Oh, but I don't have any string. Do you?" "Ah, no, I'm afraid not, my good sir," the raccoon said sadly. "I guess the bone is lost to us forever." "Well, said the dog. "Maybe not. Meet me at the pond. I think I know where to get some string." The raccoon padded off to the pond, and the dog went back to the alley behind the butcher shop. "Hello," he called when he arrived. "Cat, are you still here?" Silent as a shadow, the tatty orange cat appeared on top of a nearby awning. She watched him suspiciously, batting the ball of yarn back and forth between her paws. "What is it? Are you trying to tease me with your bone some more?" she purred. "Listen," Bailey said, finding that apologizing wasn't so hard once you got into the rhythm of it. "I'm sorry for how I acted earlier. I was greedy. I was so greedy. The truth is I've had a tough afternoon. I lost my bone in the pond, but then I made friends with a duck who loves stale bread, and I think with a raccoon too, even though I called him a trash panda." Okay. "We have a plan, but we need your help." He explained about the duck and the raccoon and the pond and the string. "And why should I help you?" the cat asked, flexing her claws. "Just because you apologized?" "Because you can share the bone with us," Bailey said, and then he went on, inspired. "Man, not just this bone. I get a new bone every day, and I'm going to start sharing with all my friends." You want to be my friend?" "I was greedy and it cost me," he said. "I had to learn the hard way that driving everyone away means you don't have to share, but it also means you're all alone. I don't want that. I'm sorry. If you can forgive me, I'd like to be your friend. Even if I don't let you use my string? Bailey thought for a moment. Did he just want to be friends for the string? With a surprise, he realized that no, he wanted to be friends for more than that. Running around, making a plan, and talking to these other animals, weird as they might be, was the most fun he'd had in years. Well, I don't deserve the string, so I understand if you don't want to share it. Either way, I'd still like to be your friend, and I'll have a new bone to share tomorrow. Well, in that case, said the cat, leaping off the awning with the ball of yarn, let's go get that bone. Bailey barked again, but this time in excitement. They ran back to the pond and found the raccoon and the duck waiting for them. Oh, it's our friend the dog and the cat! Hi, cat, said the duck. We are waiting for some string to get the bone, but I have some stale bread. Would you like some stale bread? If you don't, I also have stale bread. It's positively scrumptious, said the raccoon, chewing on a crust, but not near as tasty as the bone will be. And I see you've brought the string. Do you mind, my fair lady? Not at all, the cat said, rolling the string over to the raccoon. I like them, she said to the dog. I like them too, Bailey said with a smile. Soon, the raccoon used his clever paws to tie the string into a loop. The duck took it, dove under the water, and put it around the bone with her beak. Then the dog grabbed the string ball in his mouth and gave a mighty tug. The bone shot into the air like a glistening fish and rolled onto the pond's dirty shore. Hooray! They all cheered. And then, together, they ate. And from that day forward, the greedy old dog was no longer greedy. Every morning, he'd take his bone from the butcher and meet the cat in the alley. Together, they'd pick up the raccoon and head to the duck's pond, where they'd have a picnic to share their food and their friendship. The end. Thanks for listening.